Hello, this is like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. And there's a little bug with the way arcade games in this game are displayed. There are 5 playable video arcade games, and they're all in this little arcade here, as well as some other arcades in the game that you can come across. There are 2 games that were running on Sega Model 3 hardware in the arcade, and those are the most technologically advanced games in this virtual collection in Gaiden. One of them is Sega Racing Classic 2 here, which is also known as Daytona 2. The other Model 3 game is this one here, Fighting Vipers 2, which is a fighting game. The other games ran on earlier Sega hardware in the actual arcade, and they aren't as high polygon and so forth. So the thing is, and I came across this in a post on Reddit. I went looking for something about it because I noticed that the first time I played Virtua Fighter 2, it ran at the full height of my screen, my 1080p screen. But when I came back and ran it again later, it had borders at the top and bottom, so it was running in a smaller window. And I wanted to try to figure out how I had got it to run in the larger window earlier. And it turns out it's a bug, and it comes out in a smaller window depending on what game you played first. So if I just came in here, so I just loaded the game up, I ran Gaiden, loaded the game up and came in here. If I start up Virtua Fighter 2 now, Virtua Fighter 2 ran on Sega Model 2 hardware. It's the full height of the screen. You know, you can see it goes from the top to the bottom. So that's what I want. But if you play one of the Sega Model 3 games and then play Virtua Fighter, so I'm going to start Fighting Vipers 2 here. That's a Sega Model 3 game. You'll notice it runs in a slightly downsized window that doesn't take up the full height of the screen.
Fighting Viper, select your Viper.
Notice how it's got borders at the top and bottom.
Round 1.
And that's how these Model 3 games in Gaiden always run. You can't get them to run full screen at all. Now if I go back to Virtua Fighter, notice how it is now at the same shrunken down window size that that the Sega Model 3 game was at, that Fighting Vipers 2 was at. And the other 2 games, which are also not Model 3, they will now be stuck in the smaller window.
I'm no match for anyone. Choose one.
Just give me a full screen view here so I can tell. Yeah, so this is in a smaller window, as we can finally see. And Sonic the Fighters is the last non-Model 3 game here. It should run full height, but it's not because we ran the Model 3 game first. So notice how it's not full screen height, it's got the top and bottom borders. And they'll stay that way, as far as I can tell, until you quit the game, quit out of Gaiden entirely and run it again. So let's just do that. Fortunately, we have things like SSDs these days, and it doesn't take that long, right? Takes longer to skip through all these startup splash screens. So if I run Sonic Fighters now that I've restarted the entire Gaiden game, hey, it's full screen, like it should have been all along. Full screen from top to bottom. I mean, it's not stretching it to the sides of the screen, which is good. It's interesting because earlier games in the series did have the ability to let you pick several different sizes of the screen. They had a toggle, at least some of them did, a toggle button to change its size, but Gaiden doesn't do that. See what Motor Raid looks like now.
Nobody can stop me.
The fire stage. Get ready. 3, 2, 1.
So Motor Raid, top to bottom of the screen. So that's the bug. The other Model 3 game is Sega Racing Classic 2. So we'll notice the screen size here. There's that tinier screen again. This game always runs at this tinier screen size.
Please select a...
Even if it's the first one you ran. And then again, if I go try old Virtua Fighter again. And it is now in the tinier Model 3 sized window. So again, I would have to quit out of Enter the Dragon Gaiden entirely, and load it all back up. And then if I went to Virtua Fighter 2 first, before going to the Model 3 games, Sega Racing Classic 2 or Fighting Vipers 2, then Virtua Fighter would show at the larger size where it covers the whole area from top to bottom of the screen. It's sort of interesting because just months after Like a Dragon Gaiden came out, the next game in the series, I mean, Like a Dragon Gaiden is kind of technically a spin-off, I guess, but Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is out now. And that game, I think, I don't have that game. I think it has basically 3 video arcade games in it, and they're all, I'm saying video arcade games because there's other arcade games in these, like these redemption type things. All 3 of the games, I think, in all 3 of the video, retro arcade games in Infinite Wealth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, are Model 3 games, and as far as I can tell from videos people have made and screenshots that have been posted, they all run in this smaller screen size that the Model 3 games here run in. So they've got those little top and bottom borders in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, except that it's not a black screen. It's not just plain black borders. around the game screen in the middle. It's a graphic of sort of an arcade front bezel, so kind of like these have. They've got little sort of angled bits right around the game window and sort of a lighting effect like it's showing on an arcade cabinet around the sides of the screen. So it's kind of got that side art all around the display of the Model 3 games in their sort of shrunken down window size in like a Dragon Gaiden. They didn't do that here. And I kind of wonder if maybe they were developing the emulator for the Model 3 stuff kind of simultaneously for the two games, and they didn't. This one came out earlier. They didn't quite get around to making the presentation as fancy. They didn't have that graphical illustration around them. I don't know why they put them in a window in the first place. Maybe it was because they just wanted to have it look like more like sitting in an arcade cabinet and they didn't quite get that part done all the way in this one. I don't know. It couldn't be a performance thing, right? They couldn't have needed to shrink the screen like 5% or something. Would they? Or maybe the pixel scaling, just they thought that looked weird at a certain size. I don't know. But it's obviously a bug that smaller screen size then gets sort of put onto the other games as well, because if you play them first, they don't have it, and there's no way within the game itself to toggle them back up to full size. You actually have to quit and restart. So that's clearly a bug. It just didn't get noticed, didn't get tested correctly. So that's too bad. Hopefully they'll fix it. I don't know if they're still interested in fixing bugs, at least not, critical crash type bugs or something in Gaiden at this point, since it's already been out since late last year-ish. I don't know. But it'd be nice if they would, because it's sort of annoying. I bought this game because I wanted to play the arcade games. These are, classic Sega legacy games, and they kind of screwed up the presentation a little bit, unfortunately. So hopefully they'll straighten that out. They don't make these available anymore to buy, individually, so we have to get them in these goofy, overpriced mobster simulator collections if we really want, the official Sega versions that they're selling. And so it's just depressing. They don't really seem to take a whole lot of care with how they present them all the time. I mean, I just found a bug with how they're shown in Yakuza 6 on the Steam version of Yakuza 6. The retro arcade games in that, at least I was checking it with Super Hang-On in Yakuza 6. It shows at the wrong screen ratio. It's too narrow. If you compare it with the version that came out on PS3, which is basically the same version they put into Yakuza 6 by M2. They just kind of took M2's code from the PS3 version, it sure looks like, and reworked it a bit, but they changed the aspect ratio when they did that. M2, who are arcade emulation experts, they had it showing at the proper slightly wider than 4:3 resolution. Like on a 1080p display, it should be showing at Super Hang-On, for instance, should be showing at 1540 pixels wide by 1080 high. So that's a little wider than 4:3. It's more like 10:7. It's actually really close to 10:7, but instead it's showing at 1440, so it's 100 pixels too narrow if you're running it in 1080p, for instance. You can also find that if you compare it with actual screenshots from the real arcade version, or what was the other version I compared it with? Oh, just the version in the PS4 version of Yakuza 6 runs it at the correct screen aspect. So it's specifically the Steam version that got it screwed up. Now, how they managed to do that, I don't know. But maybe their Steam QA isn't that great. I don't know. I don't know if this border problem also exists in all of the console versions for like a Dragon Gaiden. I'm not sure. I think it might, because I haven't seen any version that shows the Model 3 games at full size, for instance. So that suggests it's probably in there, but I don't know. If you have a console version of Gaiden, and you know whether or not this bug where if you play a Model 3 game first and then play a non-Model 3 game, that makes the non-Model 3 game show the shrunk down Model 3 size, whereas it wouldn't normally if you had played it first. Let me know in the comments. I would be interested to know that. Not that it really matters unless Sega actually decides to fix it like they say they're concerned about in their official, post your bug reports here thread on Steam, the discussion section, the discussion forum for the game on Steam. They make it sound like they care, so hopefully they do. Hopefully they'll fix it, and whatever other bugs people may have reported. Because I want to play these old games, and the only actual official way I'm supposed to do that now is in these collections, and it kind of sucks to have them just kind of goofed up a little bit, just a little bit. But, when the screen is just shrunk down for no good reason, that's a bummer. And, and when the screen is like squished or stretched like it is in the games in Yakuza 6, that's a bummer too. So, be nice if they straighten some of these out. But we'll see. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know, so if you do run into this problem and you're wondering why Virtua Fighter 2 or Sonic the Fighters or Motor Raid are not running quite in the full height of the screen, whereas maybe you could have sworn that they were once at some point when you played them before, it would be because you probably anyway ran one of the Model 3 games, Fighting Vipers 2 or Sega Racing Classic 2, before you ran them. So if you do really want to play the games at their correct size, the three non-Model 3 games, you can fix it by quitting out, making sure to save your game if you want to make sure you don't lose any progress. Quitting out of Gaiden entirely, quit to your desktop, and then run Gaiden again and load back up and play the non-Model 3 game before you play the Model 3 games, and it should be as big as it can get. It should take up the full height of the screen. So that's what I got, and it's what I'm going to have to do, which, that's just the way it is for now. Thanks for watching. See you later.